here up milling and down milling. So first we will discuss methods. Previously we will discuss methods of milling machines. First one is peripheral milling. Peripheral milling, first we will discuss peripheral milling, then second is face milling, second is face milling, third is end milling, end mill or end milling. This again, this peripheral milling is divided into two types. One is up milling or conventional milling. Again, second is down milling or climb milling. Down milling or climb milling. Then in up milling, what happened? Now the cutter, in up milling, multi-point cutter rotating directions and work feeding directions both are opposite, but in down milling, cutter rotating directions and work feeding directions both are same. In up milling, work feeding directions and cutter rotating directions both are opposite, but in down milling or climb milling, cutter rotating directions and workpiece feeding directions both are same. So what happened? In this up milling, cutter touches the point and first from thin to maximum, means cutting material first removed slow, then it will remove at the last of the milling, at the last of the contact point of the cutter, the more material is removed. For these reasons, there is a heavy force at the last point in the up milling. For this, there may be a chances of lifting of this workpiece. For that heavy vice is required. In up milling for keeping the vice and also there is a rough surface was produced. But in down milling, the contact of the material was from heavy to less. The contact of the material between the cutting actions and this workpiece from high to low. For these reasons, as the cutting action or as the material is removed from high to low, there is a very less force. And also there is a very less force for metal removing at the end, but there is also this force acts in downward direction. For this reason, it may be happen there is no vice in this milling, in down milling, but in up milling this maximum force at the end of the milling in upward direction, but there must be a vice, there must be a work holding devices for fixing this workpiece, but in down milling or climb milling there may not be a vice. And also here machining surface is very smooth. So this is up milling and down milling. This is the peripheral milling. Then we will discuss what is face milling. In face milling, what happened? Flat surface was produced. Flat surface is produced perpendicular to the cutter rotation. cutter rotation. In face milling, what happened? Now the surface which is flat, the flat surface is produced on the workpiece. In which directions? Now this surface is perpendicular to the cutter rotation. This perpendicular to the cutter rotation. For this face milling cutter is maximum used in vertical milling machine. The face milling and peripheral cutter maximum used in horizontal milling machines. So in if the flat surface is produced parallel to the cutter axis, then this is called peripheral milling. If flat surface is produced perpendicular to the cutter surface, this is called face milling. In face milling, what happened? Now in face milling, both the operations of peripheral milling was involved. Both in face milling, both in peripheral milling, in face milling, both up milling and down milling both up milling and down milling is involved. So face milling cutter, face milling cutter means the cutter was produced in this face, not on the periphery. The cutter was produced on this face. The cutter teeth was is present in this face, not on the periphery. For if we will machine a surface by using face milling cutter, what happened? From fast rotations, from half circle there is a up milling. For half circle there is a up milling, another half circle there is a down milling, another half circle there is a down milling operations. For as a both up milling and down milling operations used, the face milling uses both the advantages of up milling and down milling. Face milling operations used both advantages of up milling and down milling. Here very smooth surface is produced. Here very smooth surface is produced, but surface should be flat. Then another methods of milling machine is end milling. Then another is end milling. This is third one. Another is end milling. This end milling is third one. End milling means if this is a cutter on both the surface, at the end face, both in end face and periphery, there is a teeth. Both in end face and periphery, there is teeth. So it is both in end face and periphery there is a teeth of milling cutter. So this is end milling. End milling is used to produce flat surface in any plane, that is horizontal, in horizontal plane, vertical plane, and also in angular positions. So this is the methods of milling machines. First one is peripheral milling, second one is face milling, and third one is end milling. First we will divide peripheral milling into two types. One is up milling and another is down milling. In up milling, what happened? In up milling, both the cutter rotation direction and work feed directions both are opposite. but in climb milling or down milling, both the directions, that is feeding directions of workpiece and cutter rotation directions, both are same. Then what happened in face milling? In face milling, what happened? Now, if the flat surface produced is perpendicular to the cutter rotation directions, this is called flat mill. This is called face milling. And face milling uses the advantages of both up milling and down milling. Then third one is end milling. End milling means the cutter teeth both present in end face of the milling cutter and periphery of the milling cutter. So, this is the methods of milling machines. Then we will discuss what are the types of milling machines. Then we will discuss what are the types of milling machines. Then types of milling machines. Then we will discuss types of milling machines. The first there is a first category is column and knee type, second is manufacturing or fixed bed type, then third one is planer type milling machine for special type, rotary table milling machine, drum milling machine, profile milling machine, planetary milling machine, tracer control milling machine, pantograph milling machine, CNC milling machines. Then we will discuss one by one. The first is column and knee type milling machines. In column and knee type milling machines, again classified into these categories: hand milling machines, plane or horizontal milling machines, vertical milling machines, universal milling machines and omniversal milling machines. These column and knee type milling machines are classified on the basis of work feeding, basis of power provided to table for feeding, that is hand feeded, this is hand or machine power. Second category is table movement. Third category is table rotation in different planes. Table rotation in different planes, that is on the basis of this column and knee type milling machines are divided into the following these categories on the basis of power provided to table for feeding, that is hand power or machine power. Then table movement means this table can be what is the directions of table movement, then table rotation in different plane. Then on this basis these classifications is done: hand milling machines, plane or horizontal milling machines, vertical milling machines, universal milling machines, omniversal milling machines. First we will see one by one. So, this is hand milling machines. What do you mean by hand milling machines? Means on these tables have two motions. These tables means this feeding means the feeding provided to the table is means this table is fed against workpiece by hand. Means this table can be fed against the workpiece by hand. So, on the basis of this by hand providing hand power to this motion of the table, we name this hand milling machines. It may be horizontal or vertical. It may be horizontal or vertical. It may be horizontal or vertical milling machines. It may be horizontal or vertical milling machines. What is the difference between these horizontal milling machines and vertical milling machines? In horizontal milling machines, the arbor is used. In horizontal milling machines, arbor is used for holding the cutters, but in vertical milling machines, the spindle is used for holding the cutter. In horizontal milling machines, we can produce flat surfaces, but in vertical milling machines, we can produce flat surfaces in any plane, means horizontal, vertical, or in angular positions, because in vertical milling machines, these the spindles can rotate up and down, can also move up and down, can also rotate. So, hand milling machines can be horizontal or vertical milling machines. Why this is called hand milling machines? Because we provide power by hand for motions of this table. It is the simplest of all types of milling machines in which table feeding is controlled by hand. The cutter is mounted on a horizontal arbor and is rotated by power. It may be horizontal arbor. This type of milling machine is of small in size and suitable for light and simple milling operations. For example, machining slots, grooves and key wedge. This hand type of milling machine is used. Then again plain milling machines. This again plain milling machines. In plain milling machines, what happened? Now, this power is the power provided to milling tables for feeding is machine power. Is machine power. Is machine power means machine power is provided to these milling tables for feeding the work, and also these milling machine tables have motion of horizontal directions. These milling machines, this table can move in longitudinal directions, also it can move in crosswise directions. These milling machines is motions in longitudinal directions, cross directions, and also move in up and down motions. So, these milling machines bed have three types of motions. Three types of motion. One is longitudinal direction, means this bed can move in these directions, and second one is cross directions. Cross direction means milling machines can move in these directions and also can move in these directions, and another direction is up and down to accommodate different heights of the workpiece. So, this bed can move up and down to accommodate different heights of the workpiece. These are much stronger than hand milling machines. The table feeding is done either by hand or power. The plain milling machine having a horizontal spindle is called as a horizontal spindling machine. The table may be fed in longitudinal, cross or vertical directions. So, these plain milling machines can be only horizontal milling machines. Then omniversal milling machines. Then this is universal milling machines. What do you mean by universal milling machines? As plain type milling machines having the same functions of universal milling machines, here extra motion is produced. Extra motion of the table is present. Extra motion. As these three motions, as already tell in slam milling machines, plain milling machines, these three extra motions plus one extra motion is present. One extra motion is present in universal milling machine. One extra motions of table. One extra motions of table is present in this milling machine, universal milling machines. What is this extra motions? Now, these table can be fed. These tables can be fed by an angular feeding. Table can be fed by angular feeding. Angular feeding is there in universal milling machines, means angular feeding is there. Angular feeding is there, means angular feeding is there in this universal milling machines. As angular feeding is there, here we can produce a gear, helical surface. This angular feed is there in universal milling plus these three means longitudinal directions, horizontal directions, crosswise direction and vertical directions. Here the table also has 4 moments. 4 moment means these 4 moments. 4 moment means 3 plus 1. This one is angular motion. This one is angular motion, angular feeding of table. Angular feeding of table of the universal milling machine. It can also be tilted in a vertical plane by providing a swivel arrangement. Universal. It can be adapted to a wide range of milling operations. Here the table can be swiveled to an angle up to 45 degrees. Angle up to 45 degrees means angular feeding. Angular feeding either side of the normal positions. In addition to 3 moments as mentioned earlier in a plane milling machines, the table may have the 4th moment when it is fed at an angle to the milling machine. Means addition to these three motions means horizontal motions, crosswise motions and vertical motions of the table, there is another moment present in these universal milling machines, that is angular feeding. The capacity of this type of machine is increased by using special attachments such as dividing head, rotary attachment, slotting attachment. These machines can produce spur gear, bevel gear, spiral, twist drill, reamer, milling cutter. All operations that are performed on a shaper can be done using a universal milling machines. Means in universal milling machines we can produce spur gear, bevel gear,